everyone, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your Amac podcast, Better for America. And today, folks, I am super excited to have these conversations. We will be joined today by Amac's very own colleagues, folks that work right here in the office, that work on our mission of preserving the values that make America great. And we're going to talk about an issue that matters so much to me. For those listening, and you know me pretty well by now if you've been tuning in to Better for America, you know, Amacers, how much I love life and children. What's more important than children? The children of this nation today will define and represent future America. And I love nothing more than talking about children. They're just beautiful, innocent, wonderful. And you can imagine how thrilled I was and how grateful I am to God for the Roe v. Wade reversal, because I believe that that will certainly save lives, and it gives we the people the opportunity to educate friends, families, neighbors, and talk about life in the womb. We've got to follow the science. And one of the young gals that's joining me today, I have tremendous respect for. She is the associate editor of the Amac magazine. Don't you love the magazine? I love it too. Alexa has made it even better. And her passion is really all around what we stand for, our values, the things that make America so wonderful and so great. Also joining us today is Amac's very own Bob Chartick. Now, I know Bob for many, many years, but when I overheard Alexa and Bob have a conversation right here in Amac's office, I was blown away. Folks, you don't want to miss this conversation. You really want to tune in. This is a podcast that you'll want to share with friends and family, neighbors, relatives, everyone you know. We'll be right back with you, folks. Alexa, I am thrilled to have you with me right here in Amac's Better for America studio. This is a true honor. And for all of our listeners, I just want to remind you who Alexa is. If you love the Amac magazine, you're going to love this girl. She's all of that and then more. Her ideas, her passion, and she brings a fresh perspective to Amac, which we so desperately need today. But I feel that just when I speak to you and when we collaborate and we come up with ideas, that I'm hearing from a generation of people that gives me hope and gives me promise, because we sometimes sort of label younger people as being either too woke or being millennial. And, the millennials that don't want to work. And I'm telling you now that this is you, girl. You shine. You really do.
Thank you,
but I want to explain to our listeners why. It's not just that I adore the work you do and really admire your tenacity and passion for everything that's great about this country and that you stand for. But we had so many interesting conversations over Roe v. Wade and life. And for people listening, our members know that this is probably areas of our country where we really need, our conscience needs to wake up. And we need to recognize that life is precious and life is meaningful. And we need to protect the sanctity of life, and that life begins in the womb. And so when you and I were chit-chatting, I was really blown away by your perspective, because it made me recognize that you were growing up a young woman in the age of the sonogram. Matter of fact, to our listeners, we have a great article on that on our website where they can find. And so, I want to talk to you a little bit about your perspective, being a woman in your 20s, your perspective of this Roe v. Wade overruling that essentially says having an abortion is not a constitutional right. Just because you're born American and live here in America does not mean that you have the right to take the life of your baby while it's in your womb. Rather, the power to make those decisions, whether an abortion procedure is legal or illegal, is now left to the states. I just want to start really big picture, high level. What was your immediate reaction when you heard this? And if you can sort of share with those listening a little bit about what helped form your ideas, and what is it that made you a woman who loves life, wants to defend life, wants to speak for life? Because I think that these are things that are very helpful to our listeners as they engage with their maybe younger family members, their children, their grandchildren.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Rebecca. It is such a pleasure to have the opportunity to sit here with you and talk with you. I love your passion and the passion in this company. Every time I sit in a meeting and I hear the way that everyone, our Amac associates and people in Amac Action, how they talk about our country and this company and the hope for all of the things that they know they can achieve by being a part of this organization. And it's so uplifting. And every day that I come into work, I'm so excited. And I go to my grandma's house on my lunch, and I'm so excited to tell her all these things that I've learned. And so that's where the passion working here comes from. When it comes to the Roe v. Wade decision and how my views and how I feel about protecting life, to me, that's just a matter of morals. That's a matter of you're born with it or you're not. But I also feel like it's being instilled. I feel like nowadays, I think the false narrative of feminism, well, what now has become feminism, I think plays a huge role in that.
Ooh, I want to talk more about feminism because you'd think that a true feminist would be standing in support of young women, old women, all women, for that matter, that have an unwanted pregnancy or an unplanned pregnancy, and finding ways to rally around those women to really provide the support. Because we know, and we've talked about the emotional scarring of abortion that runs so deep. It's really interesting to hear you, a woman in your 20s, talk about modern day America and how feminism is no longer what we thought it was, I guess.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, in the late 1800s, women were fighting for their right to vote. And then in the 1950s and 60s, they were fighting just to get away from the being a housewife. And, they wanted to be able to work. They wanted independence. They wanted to get away from being an object.
That's a very good point.
And so there was a reason to fight. There really was. And we've come such a long way. And I don't know where the fork in the road went, that feminism went from fighting to feminists in the 50s and the 60s hated Jane Mansfield, hated Marilyn Monroe. They hated that these idols at the time were conforming to that risque, like they were very risque for their time. So I don't know where feminism went from being against that and wanting women to wear suits and be in the workplace to now feminist idols are people like Cardi B. People like now it's empowerment. If you take your clothes off and you post it on social media, that's feminine empowerment. And I don't know where we went wrong or how that came to be, but that is not what feminism was created for. And I think it shouldn't be called feminism.
It shouldn't be called feminism. We know that these so-called labeled feminists are doing women a disservice in this nation. But I'm gonna push here a little bit. It's not government that we should be worshiping; it's God that we should be worshiping it. And I do think that was where a major fork in the road, where we saw a major change in America, was this walking away and almost wanting to remove God and instead worship our feelings, right? And worship things and worship status. And worship the material world instead of really looking inwardly, reflecting, being accountable, being someone who wants to own the responsibility that's been given to them or discover the God-given gifts that have been bestowed to them. And I love that as a young woman. And I can say that I'm 51 years old, so I can say I'm still young, but relatively speaking, much younger woman who embraces the same ideals that AMAC members do. And this is why we love to have you on the show. I want to talk to you a little bit about your thoughts on what you think the Roe v. Wade reversal means in modern America and how that might impact people of your age demographic who may not yet be ready for a family.
Personally, I feel, regardless of the amount of weeks, medical emergencies and medical attention should be a given. And what bothers me is not even just about this, but what the left is saying today. I mean, I see so many things on social media, people saying more women are going to die now because of this case, because states like Mississippi do not allow not allow doctors to perform necessary medical care if they have a miscarriage, because these states are considering miscarriage and any medical treatment regarding miscarriage to be forms of abortion procedures. And that is just so ludicrous to me that someone could think, how is that even, like, why are people not asking these questions? When I think of pro-life and pro-choice, we want pro-life. We are for life. Who thinks that a pro-lifer would now be like, oh, okay, now the mother can just die. We're just going to allow the mother to die.
Those are the lies and the myths that we're hearing from the left. We're hearing so many lies and so many myths. And it's meant to scare you. Folks, when Roe v. Wade was passed, what the left did, keep in mind, people listening, they know that. This Amacers, they know this. Abortion is a money-making industry. At the heart of abortion is money. That is what it is really all about. The wording that they use to try to coerce young girls, 8, 9, 10-year-old little girls that grow up hearing, be pro-choice, it's cool. It's not. Let's call it what it is. It's pro-abortion, which is being pro-death.
And I think it all stems back to what you had said earlier about not having a faith in God and having this self-centered idea of yourself. And the left, they are so selfish. It's me, 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 me. Call me by these pronouns. This. And it's like they're not realizing that it is a child inside of them. It is a disconnect. It's just the selfishness. It's my choice. It's my body. It is not your body. You are now sharing your body. You're sharing your uterus with another human being. You are still a mother. Regardless if you birth that child, you are still a mother. Your hormones change, your endorphins change. Your body is prepping you as a mother, and you are a mother.
You are a mama.
And you will not see the left acknowledge that, and you don't see enough people talk about that. They don't want to talk about the trauma that comes with having an abortion. And there's so many articles I've seen of women coming out saying that Planned Parenthood, which is government funded, coerced them into having an abortion. I mean, how many stories do you hear of doctors convincing people to get an abortion for selfish reasons? Because your life is going to be more difficult, because you didn't go through college yet. How could you possibly carry this child if you're not ready? And
are we ever ready?
Exactly. As human beings.
Listeners here, they know you're never ready for anything. I don't think I was ever ready.
Exactly.
We're never ready.
It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not logical.
It is not logical.
It's just one of those things again. And I think it all stems down to how we view ourselves as society and where, who we started to worship. We no longer worship faith or God. We worship self and selfish reasons, and we're being taught it at a very young age. I mean, children are being taught this, and it worries me. It does. I mean, when I get older, like what doctors are gonna be by my bedside, and where is this going? And it's so worrisome. But I know that there are a lot of people who are my age, and so many of us within the country who will not back down. I mean, so many of us even here at Amac. We won't stop the fight. We won't stop fighting.
So, Alexa, what I do want to ask you is, what kind of message can we leave with our listeners so that they can probably get in the minds of this generation of young women and men that are doing and will continue to do some pretty marvelous things here in America as it relates to life and the value of life? How do we move young women? How do we open their minds and their hearts to understand that there is precious life growing in the womb? How do we get them to buy into the science? How do we get them to walk back from a lot of the false teachings of what it means to be a feminist today in America?
I think it all stems down to instilling that faith. I don't think that you can sit someone down, a radical leftist in a rally right now. I don't think you can sit them down. I don't think that they would take in this information. I think it starts deeper than that. I think it's almost like therapy in a way. I think that you have to really talk morals, talk about faith, talk about bigger picture things. And then all of these little pieces, I feel, will then slide together. I mean, that's just what I've seen from people who have woken up and said, wait a second, it's just not adding up. It's not making sense. It's because they've had just experiencing life, experiencing things, and your mind grows. And I feel like a lot of these people who are really pushing for this, who believe this, are stuck in this closed-minded state. And I think it's about opening up that mind and really broadening them and expressing to them. I mean, even with the whole feminism thing, I mean, it's like, you taking off your clothes, is that really empowerment? Like, think of these strong women who doctors and become brain surgeons and professors at universities. Where is the feminist saying that these are empowered women? Where are they? Why is it that...
Very good point.
Why is it that the girl on Instagram who's taking off her top, who has her toddler in the background, why is that an empowered woman?
Yeah, why is she being like, oh, you're so brave, you're so courageous, show it, girl. And if you know, that's not the way to be. And we want to explain to people that that's
exactly.
It's not the way to be because we're old-fashioned. It's not the way to be. It's not
bigger.
Out of judgment. It's out of... take it from me. I've lived a couple of decades, more than a couple of decades here on this green earth. And what I can tell you is it ultimately leads to destruction when you don't honor life. And when you talk about life as being indispensable, when you talk about your own feelings mattering more than the people around you, you're just missing out on what truly, to me, cultivates happiness. And that is being someone who can appreciate the goodness in other people and really have a respect for life. You're right. It's hard to teach it. I can only say that I commend you for having amazing conversations with friends, family members who may not always agree with you, because your voice matters. I think for people in my age demographic, you can never have enough sit down with your daughter, your son, your granddaughter, reminding those little ones how precious their life is, or that God created them. Planting those seeds of life early on can make all the difference later on when they're making a decision whether to honor life and protect life or destroy and take life. Which is why, Alexa, I'm so excited right now, coming up, a wonderful interview, Alexa Astuto with Bob Chartick. This is a story you don't want to miss. It's a miracle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexa, and joining me is Bob Chartick, another Amac associate. So yesterday, Bob and I, we just so happened to be in Rebecca's office. We both, we all work together here at Amac, and you came in and you told such a remarkable story. And Rebecca said, "Nope, you have to join us. You have to share this story and be on our show. We're doing an episode just about this and about pro-life and why it's so important." So if you could share your story, just how you did with Rebecca and I yesterday, I think our members would really love that.
Well, Alexa, I figured with everything going on with the Supreme Court and the debate over right to life, and I know that Rebecca's a very spiritual person. I had a story that I felt compelled to share about my own life and my own family. And it goes back to about 20 years ago. I met my wife. Ironically, about a block from where I'm sitting today. I was saying I had in my lifetime 4 different jobs, all within this radius over the course of about 40 years on 3 different streets right in a row here where our headquarters is. And I met my wife. She had 2 children, 2 daughters before we met, and we wanted to have a child of our own. So we tried for a while, and nothing really happened. And one day I was looking at her and I saw she had sort of like a bump in her stomach, and we went to the doctor, and it turned out to be an ovarian cyst about the size of a tennis ball. So we said doctor wanted to remove it with a complete hysterectomy, and having children would have been no percent at that point. So we said, well, all right, is there any alternatives? And the doctor mentioned, well, there's a hormonal therapy called Lupron. And that kind of rung a bell with me recently with the whole debate about children being deciding that they were either a male or a female, before they even reached puberty, and that they would be given Lupron to change their hormonal structure. So the doctor's idea was to give my wife Lupron, change her briefly from a woman into a man, and that would cut off the growth of the cyst. And during that point, she could possibly get pregnant, and she would come off Lupron. The cyst would start to grow again along with the child, and it was risky, but there was a possibility. We figured, my wife was 40 years old at the time, and we already had 2 daughters. We wanted one of our own. We said, okay, we'll give it a shot. So we made an appointment to start the therapy and went to the doctor. And my wife went in, and I was sitting there in the waiting room, and they had all the magazines, Gynecology Today, and I started thumbing through it. And I saw an article about an alternative treatment for cysts. This one would involve injecting like a glue-like substance up through the vein in her leg into the cyst, cut off the blood supply. That would force the cyst to shrink, and then it could possibly be removed without taking out her reproductive organs. And then at that point, maybe we could conceive a child. So I'm looking at this article saying, wow, well, we're getting the Lupron therapy. Yeah. And a couple minutes later, my wife came out and she said, well, we got to come back. The nurse forgot to order the Lupron. Like, oh, okay, well, let me talk to the doctor. And I showed him the article. And he said, yeah, I think I know a colleague of mine that can do this. So we made the appointment with him, and she actually had the treatment. Lo and behold, the tumor cyst started to shrink to the point where it could be safely removed. We went to another surgeon. He removed it. And about a couple months later, my wife was pregnant, and we're on our way to having a child. So that's part 1 of the story. Part 2, seeing that she was a little older, she was 40 years old, they did a amno test to see how the baby was coming along. We're about 2 months into it. And I'll never forget, it was a cold, rainy day, and the hospital called us, and they said, you have to come in. We had the results of the amnio. I said, well, why don't you just tell us what they are? Oh, no, you have to come in. We came in, and we met with a counselor who proceeded to tell us that the child would be a Down syndrome baby, and that probably the best option would be to abort. You don't really want to bring a child, with birth defects into this world. And I have to say, there was a lot of pressure at that point,
I'm sure,
to terminate the pregnancy, and there was no way we were going to do that. After what we went through.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a very happy moment.
Yeah.
We wanted to have the child.
Yeah.
And they made us sign waivers, and they told us, well, this is your decision. You have to go through with it. So we were pretty much floored. And I tell you that one of the heartbreaking moments to it was at the end of this whole exercise, oh, by the way, it's going to be a girl. So that kind of broke us up a little bit. That was the first time, we heard what the child would be, a daughter. So we went home, and, we went online, and we joined a Down syndrome support group. We went to a couple meetings, and we were fully, aware that and prepared to have a Down syndrome child, no problem whatsoever. So we decided, not to terminate the pregnancy, and we had a daughter. So it was maybe about a year, we kept close eye on her. We never went back to the Down syndrome support group. We figured, hey, whatever happens.
Yeah.
And our daughter started to develop, and we kind of kept a close eye on her and kind of realized it doesn't seem like she's a Down's child. So we took her to get tested, and lo and behold, she was not. And she's going into her sophomore year as a college student studying math and physics.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that's the story of my daughter, Sarah. It turns out that my understanding is there's 2 ways they do the testing. In her case, they took cells from the amniotic fluid, and they grow the cells in the lab to determine the genetic makeup. And those cells could divide abnormally and become Down syndrome cells. And that's what they based it on. 5 of our 6 lab tests were turned out to be Down syndrome. But that's not because the cells were Downs to begin with. They turned into Downs as they grew in the lab. The real cells in the mother turned out to be fine. And they grew into a perfectly healthy girl.
How did you learn that afterwards? I wanted to ask you this yesterday, and I was thinking about it when I got home. I wondered, how did you find that out, that they grew afterwards?
They actually told us, and we did some research on it and found out that was the case. One way would be this is my understanding, scientifically I may be wrong, but the genetic abnormality could occur at conception, and that the abnormality would carry through the pregnancy. Downs is just I think one extra gene or a missing gene, something genetic.
A chromosome or
a chromosome.
One of those. Yeah.
So that could occur either at conception or as the child would grow in the womb. The child grew in the womb very healthy, but the 6 examples, 5 out of the 6 grew abnormally. So she's a lucky girl.
Oh, she is. And you're
happy parents.
Lucky parents, too.
Yep. And we waited until she was about 16 years old, and we told her. And she was pretty cool with it. She's like, I'm special.
Yeah.
But she's perfectly normal and doing very well in college. And she's studying math and physics. And she's going to be a very productive member of society. And we're very happy about that.
Oh, God bless. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that story. I know our AMAC members are really going to love it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Alexa, I was absolutely blown away hearing that story about Bob Chardick, his wonderful wife, his beautiful daughter, and just the coincidence of it all and the miracle of it all.
I got chills when he said that the nurse forgot to order that Lupron. I mean, that was just... It really is. It's
miracle.
It's a divine plan.
Yeah, it wasn't just one miracle. It was like they forgot the medicine.
He happened to read it.
Magazine, right? And then you go to another doctor and this and that, and look at it all.
God.
It's just beautiful. It's really a beautiful story. So this is something you can share with friends and family. Listen, when man makes or women makes plans, when a woman makes a plan or a man makes a plan, I think God laughs. I think
that's a good
God
point.
Makes our plans. He makes our plans for us, and we need to trust. We need to trust in God. Folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you haven't donated to Amac's Choose Life campaign, what a great campaign that is.
I know. This is so wonderful.
Yeah, it's an organization that's actually doing something to help women in need.
Showing them the sonograms, showing them the ultrasounds, and
housing them, teaching them how to write a resume, teaching them how to find proper childcare, teaching them how to run their finances, all of the important life skills that you need as a young mother, especially someone who doesn't have that support. Breath of Life Pregnancy Center. We have the Donate Now button right here as part of this podcast. Go check it out. Watch that podcast. Very powerful. Regina Napolitano. She's a hero of mine.
She's a wonderful woman.
She
really is.
Yeah. Well, this was wonderful, Alexa. Thanks for being with me. We're going to do this regularly. I'm hoping.
I would love that. We're going to have
to pull her away from her other duties and have her on the show. But it's important that we do this because we love to engage with our AMACers. We love to sort of build a community of people that share the same values, that want to hear from like-minded people. You're not going to hear stuff like this on major media news outlets.
No,
that's
not.
For sure. Matter of fact, we get censored. That's why we're asking you to follow, and share the podcast wherever you are, because we do get censored. We're under incredible censorship and scrutiny from major media and Google, Facebook, all of them. They don't like our messaging, but we know that you do, and that's why we absolutely feel blessed and honored to be supported by over 2 million AMAC members. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today. My name is Rebecca Weber, and this is
Alexa Abella.
And we will both be back with you soon, shortly. I'll have Alexa back In the meantime, folks, if you haven't downloaded the Amac News app, please go ahead and do that. It's so easy. You can watch this show, track breaking news wherever you are, right there on your Amac News app. Just go to the app icon on your phone and search AMAC. You'll see our Amac News app there because you're not really informed about politics unless you've downloaded the Amac News app. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for having me. It was such a pleasure sitting here and getting to talk in front of the AMAC members. So
high five for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right,
I hope they enjoy it.
They will. Yeah. Have a
so.
great day, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.
I'm Rebecca Weber. God bless you all and have a great day.
You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.